courtrooms and the streets. Prison officials tried to stamp out Muslim practice and activism through transfers, solitary confinement, and loss of good time credit. And prisoners countered with hunger strikes, sit-ins, and litigation. In cities across the country, police scrutinized and monitored the growth of Muslim mosques, hassled men selling the Nation of Islam's newspaper, Muhammad Speaks, and prepared officers for the inevitability of violent encounters. In addition to responding to provocations with prayer, the NOI marched on police precinct headquarters and filed lawsuits alleging police brutality, which sometimes led to successful settlements. More often, as defendants rather than plaintiffs, the group used courtrooms to stage political theater and put the state on trial while building broad-based coalitions in communities of color. The dialectics of discipline describe the interplay between Muslim responses to state repression and the paradoxical acceleration of the expansion of the carceral state through new technologies of violence. Those Who Know Don't Say uses these dialectics as a way to demonstrate the historical process by which the Black freedom movement and the carceral state were always in dynamic interplay. Discipline here has a dual meaning, as a means of social control and coerciveness by the state, and as the individual and collective behavior necessary to resist and defeat it. On one hand, what has been called the twin mechanism of police and prisons work to segment, manipulate, and discipline those the state identified as delinquent or dangerous. Leveraged against the NOI, this discipline took the form of surveillance, infiltration, harassment, racial and religious profiling, mosque raids, solitary confinement, and even fatal police shootings. But these persecutions were met with a resistant self-discipline that was both individual and collective. It was not coincidental that the NOI catalyzed this dialectic. Personal discipline ranged from immaculate dress and healthy eating to prayer, tithing, and a refusal to smoke, drink, or curse. Public displays of collective discipline included the Fruit of Islam's FOI, military-style drills, security at rallies, and women's demands for separate seating in courtrooms. There were also methods of internal discipline within both the mosque and the prison, such as silencing, reprimand, and expulsion. Malcolm X's eventual ouster from the Nation of Islam was preceded by a commonplace procedure of 3 months public silencing and removal from the community. And when prisoners at Attica in the early 1960s deliberately filled solitary confinement until no more men could be sent there, they met discipline as a means of control with disciplined resistance, thereby undermining its effectiveness as a form of punishment. This distinction can be seen throughout the NOI's organizing work, in its political theorizing, as well as in its religious practice. For example, Malcolm X distinguished between racial segregation and racial separation by emphasizing that segregation means to regulate or control. A segregated community is that forced upon inferiors by superiors. A separate community is done voluntarily by two equals. As William Haywood Burns wrote, the Muslim appears to be in complete control of himself. He moved with a quiet determination and an inner sense of personal dignity. The existence of this well-disciplined self does not negate the Muslim's militancy. Indeed, discipline was a form of militancy. Discipline enacted by the state was rooted in racial control, coercion, and violence. Muslim discipline was an expression of faith, racial pride, and Black self-determination. The NOI is sometimes skeptically described as having been conscripted into political engagement. This view seems to suggest that it did not have a political program, but was reluctantly drawn into these struggles through direct experiences with police brutality and incarceration. Of course, this statement could be applied to most activism. Sites of oppression are terrains of struggle. Critics of Black nationalism more broadly point out how empire, masculinity, homophobia, and policing is reinscribed. These critiques sometimes bleed into white liberal understandings of Black nationalism as nothing but the Janus-faced twin of white nationalism. Nonetheless, Black nationalism contains trappings and contradictions. As Keisha Blaine defines it, Black nationalism is the political view that people of African descent constitute a separate group or nationality on the basis of their distinct culture, shared history, and experiences.